What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Wake and J College Football Show. We are getting into Week 8, previewing Week 8. We did have a game last night. I didn't preview it, but we will recap that one. But yeah, typical episode. Going to preview Week 8, get into some news, preview the games, and then I will be giving out my 5 favorites for the weekend. So I guess let's not waste any more time. Let's get a little high and get into it. All right, let's get into some news before we get into the games this weekend. Cam Rising's out for the year. Out for the rest of the season. He hurt his hand like a month ago. It was like a cut to one of his fingers or something like that on his throwing hand. They were teasing us for a couple weeks there. Oh, he might play, game time decision, all this stuff. Finally comes back last week, starts to play, and didn't look great right away, but then also ended up injuring, I think it was his ankle, lower leg, whatever it is. And then ever since that injury, that other injury, he really did not look good. So they officially have shut him down for the year. But Whittingham did hint at a potential 8th year for Cam Rising. For those who don't know, Cam Rising first started his college football career at Texas in 2018. This is his 7th year. Because he has not played that many games this year and is hurt for the rest of the season, which is not new for him, he does have the chance to at least apply for a medical red shirt and try to get an 8th year of college football. Now, whether he decides to do that or not, or whether he does that at Utah, remains to be seen. But he does have that option at the end of the year to try and apply for that. So that's absolutely insane. As much as I love Cam Rising, it might be time to just call it, dude. I love watching some Cam Rising play at Utah, but I think it's over. He should just call it quits. Maybe he'll get invited to a training camp. I don't see him having an NFL career. Maybe a coaching career, but not an NFL career. The NCAA has come out and I guess I knew they were going to do this. I didn't realize they were going to do it this quickly. For those who don't know, Ohio State and Oregon were playing last week. Ohio State has the ball late in the game, down 1. They're trying to drive, get into field goal position, kick a field goal, win the game. With like 10-ish seconds left in the game, right before Ohio State snaps the ball, an Oregon defensive player just walks onto the field, giving them 12 men on defense, which is a penalty. Ohio State runs their play. They throw an incomplete pass. Obviously there's going to be a flag on the play for 12 men on the field. But what happens with that is Ohio State gets 5 yards. Sure, it wasn't enough to put them into field position. They still needed more yardage. But it took, 4 or 5 seconds off the clock. That's time that Ohio State doesn't get back. So instead of resetting the game clock, that it's not a dead ball foul. It's a live play foul. So that penalty was on purpose to try and take some more time off the clock and give Ohio State less time. And then, very next play, Ohio State drops back to pass. Howard starts to scramble, is looking up at the clock, tries to slide, get down before the time runs out. Boneheaded mistake from a veteran player. I can tell you right now, he'll never make that mistake again. But people are very mad at Dan Lanning for doing that, for intentionally having a penalty called against them to take time off the clock. You're just mad that your team or you didn't think of it first or didn't have a chance to do it first. This was a brilliant move by Dan Lanning. And as somebody who was rooting for Ohio State to win, wasn't even upset by that because, you know what? Props to you for knowing the rules better than everybody else and doing that. But the NCAA has now come out and change the rules on that. So if there is, in the final 2 minutes of the game, if the defense does have a 12 men on the field penalty or an illegal substitution penalty, the offense does now have the option to have the game clock reset. So if this rule had already been put into place, Ohio State would have gotten those 5 yards and 10 seconds would have been put back on the clock, or not a full 10, but up back to what it was when they snapped the ball. Again, you can't be mad. If you're mad, wah. That's all I gotta say is wah. He just thought of something before you did, and you're upset about it. I didn't think the NCAA would move that quick to change the rule, but hey, props to them, I guess. They moved pretty quick on that one. Thursday night football. Boston College at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech was, well, at least last I had checked, 7.5 point favorites. Boston, this was a weird game. A lot of teams turning the ball over. Well, not a lot of teams. Both teams just turned the ball over in their own territory, deep in their own territory. That's exactly what Boston College did to start off the game. First drive, punt. Virginia Tech gets it, marches down the field, scores. Second and third drives for Boston College. Thomas Castellanos fumbles and gives the ball to the defense. One gave Virginia Tech like a 19 yards to go until they had to score. The other one, Boston College drove all the way down to Virginia Tech's 5-yard line, fumbled. Castellanos fumbled. And Virginia Tech proceeded to go 94 yards in 2 plays. It was just insane. So Boston College found themselves down 21-0, basically towards the beginning of the second quarter there. Now, weirdly enough, in the second half, the exact same thing pretty much happened, except it was Virginia Tech this time. First drive, Virginia Tech punts the ball. Boston College gets it, marches down, scores. Then, next 2 possessions for Virginia Tech, they turn the ball over and give Boston College very short fields. So, at halftime, Virginia Tech was winning 28-21. Very, very quickly into that third quarter. I guess 3 drives into that third quarter, Virginia Tech hadn't done anything, and Boston College scored 3 times, and they were only down 28-21. Unfortunately for Boston College, they couldn't do shit in the fourth quarter. They had a couple turnover on downs. They did have another turnover. And Virginia Tech stepped it back up in that second half and scored a few times to come away with a 42-21 win. I mean, there was just... You can't... Virginia Tech did it too, but you can't be turning the ball over that many times, especially in your own zone. Now, yes, one was all the way down to the 5-yard line. I get that, but... Overall, ugly game. I'm a Boston College fan, and I'm a Thomas Castellanos fan, but ugly game for both teams, both guys. Boston College as a whole and Thomas Castellanos, just not great. Now, that's kind of what you get with Thomas Castellanos. Last year he did turn the ball over quite a bit, was still electric as hell. This year he has done a better job, but it still springs up from time to time. And he was pressured quite a bit. Antoine Powell-Ryland for Virginia Tech made life hell for Castellanos. He finished the game with 4 sacks and was just an absolute menace. Just good-ish game for Virginia Tech, I would say defensively at least. Rough game for Boston College there. Friday night games. We got Oregon at Purdue. Originally, this was at like 27.5. Now I'm seeing it up to like 28.5 points. Purdue is the underdog. I'm going to be honest, I'm not even going to preview this one. It was cool that Purdue put up a fight against Illinois and almost won. It's cute. It was a good story. But Oregon is just a different level of good. You can argue that there might be some big game hangover from Ohio State, but not against Purdue. Purdue is fugged. That's all I'm going to say. Florida State at Duke. Duke is a 3.5-point favorite at home. I mean, Duke's offense hasn't necessarily been world beaters this year. And they also have not defensively had to face a scary passing attack. Northwestern's not scary. They faced a couple backup quarterbacks. I mean, I guess you could argue North Carolina's probably the scariest one that they faced, but I don't know that their passing attack is necessarily that deadly. So haven't really faced a potent offense through the air, but Florida State's not going to change that. They're not really the best through the air either. They haven't been great, and I feel like, because it's Florida State, they're 1-5. I feel like they have to turn it around at some point this season, like a little bit, maybe show a little fight, win a game they shouldn't, something. And maybe with Florida State having a week off, they'll start to turn the corner. I don't know. I just don't think it happens this week. Florida State's defense has not been good, and their offense has just been lackluster. I think Duke might pull off the win here. I know there's a lot of people back in Florida State, and I can't bring myself to do it. I can't. I think Duke pulls this one off. Oklahoma State at BYU. BYU is a 9.5-point favorite at home. I mean, I was so off on Oklahoma State this year. I thought they would be top 4 at least in the Big 12, but instead they're bottom 4. They're just absolute doo-doo. BYU has been a surprise team this year. Don't get me wrong. I don't think people expected them to be 6-0. And honestly, when you look at the rest of their schedule, they may finish the year with only like 1 or 2 losses. Their defense is good. Their offensive line has been pretty good. Defensive line has been good. You know, they're gonna win this game in the trenches, and that's how they've won most of their games so far. Offense, you know, they haven't been great. They haven't been bad. They're just fine. Nothing too spectacular. But Oklahoma State is just doo-doo on both sides of the ball. On offense, they want to run it, but they're bad at it. So then they get behind because their defense is bad, and then they're forced to throw. But they also can't throw the ball either, and they have been trying to find a consistent quarterback to get a consistent passing attack, and they just have not been able to do it. BYU is going to lose a game at some point this year. They're not going to finish the year undefeated. I just don't think that this is the game that they lose. I think Oklahoma State is just in a world of hurt right now. All right, Saturday games. We'll start with the noon slate. Let's start with Miami at Louisville. Louisville is a 4.5-point underdog at home. Both of these teams have struggled the last few weeks. Miami's coming off a bye week, so that's good for them, I guess. But Louisville, they had a couple of bad turnovers against Notre Dame, which cost them that one. Kevin Jennings just absolutely destroyed their defense against SMU, and then they had to come from behind at Virginia. They were ahead, gave up the lead, and had to come from behind. Which, to Virginia, guys, you almost made me have to put respect on Virginia's name. I don't want to do that. And then Miami had to come from behind against Virginia Tech and then followed that up by having to come back from 25 points down to Cal on the road. Miami's defense looked great the first 4 games of the season, and it's hard to say that they still haven't been bad. They've just had 2 games where they can't stop explosive plays. Against Virginia Tech, it was on the ground, and against Cal, it was through the air. Just allowing too many explosive plays, something they hadn't done the first 4 games of the year. And the offense as well has kind of gotten off to some slow starts, even against UAB, who they ended up beating pretty easily in the second half. They started off slow offensively. Cam Ward's had some bad turnovers, which hasn't helped, but Miami has not been stopped officially. You know, they've started games slow. Cam Ward's looked rough, and then, you know, second half, the offense keeps rolling and the defense can't stop them. I don't see Louisville's defense slowing down Miami for a whole game. So because of that, I am going to take Miami to win this. I'm not putting any money on the spread or anything like that because Louisville still could keep this game close. I just don't think that they win it. Virginia at Clemson. This started at 21.5 points, has moved to 20.5, which disrespectful to Clemson. This Tyler from Spartanburg wagon cannot be stopped. Virginia's not stopping it. The only teams that are stopping it are teams like Georgia. Clemson was my favorite to win the ACC preseason, and right now I kind of like my chances. Right now it seems like Miami is really the only threat to them. The offense is rolling. Defense has played well, and I still refuse to put respect on Virginia's name. So tie that all together, I think Clemson wins this one in a blowout. Virginia, I still have not been convinced that they have a future with Elliott as their head coach. Of Virginia's 4 wins this year, looking back, their best one is Boston College. And I love me some Boston College, but that's not a huge win by any means. They have not beat anybody of note. And you look at the rest of their schedule, and they could easily lose, 4 to 5 of their final 6 games. They could miss out on a bowl game. That is a possibility. They have a terrible pass defense, an okay run defense. The Tyler from Spartanburg wagon is rolling, and it's not going to be stopped by Virginia. Like I said, they are not going to be able to do enough offensively. They'll score some maybe, but not enough. Clemson is going to just keep rolling along. We got Nebraska at Indiana. Indiana is a 6.5-point favorite at home. Indiana has not played anybody this year, and that's people have been complaining about that. They're not that good. They haven't played anybody, and that's true. That's very true. They have not played anybody. Nebraska is going to be their toughest game this year. Before Nebraska, Maryland, Northwestern, I guess, actually would probably be the toughest game that they've had so far. Both teams do have pretty good defenses. The only difference is that Nebraska has played better teams. Now, offensively, Indiana has been amazing. Again, has not played anybody. Whereas Nebraska's offense has looked good, especially for having a true freshman quarterback, but they have had a hard time finishing drives. And their starting kicker has been out for a few games now. I don't know if he's going to be playing this weekend. And his replacement has been absolutely terrible. I think he's like 1 for 5. Just cannot kick a field goal for the life of him. So because of that, Nebraska has to score touchdowns, and they just haven't been able to finish drives. A lot of people are going to pick Nebraska in this one because Indiana ain't played nobody, Paul. I don't think Nebraska's offense is good enough to stop the mini wagon that is Indiana, and I think this mini wagon rolls another week. I think it's going to be stopped eventually, but it's not this week. Auburn at Mizzou. Mizzou started off as 5.5-point favorites. That has now dropped to 4.5, and I've been saying it, and I'll keep saying it. Mizzou is overrated as hell, and I am so firmly on that train. They do a good job of not turning the ball over, so I'll give them that. They only have 2 turnovers coming into this game, whereas Auburn loves to turn the ball over. Absolutely loves it. They can't hang onto the ball, and any chance they get, they love to give it to the other team. Missouri's biggest hurdle this season has been capitalizing on drives. They get into opponent territory, and then they just end up having to settle for field goals. And that works against some teams, but eventually it comes back to bite you when you can't finish drives and get into the end zone. As long as Mizzou continues to stall in an opponent's territory and has to kick field goals, that's only sustainable against some teams, like I said. And Auburn's defense is good. Offense is doo-doo. If they don't turn the ball over, the offense is good enough to win this game. So honestly, Auburn, I like Auburn money line in this one, if I'm going to be real honest with you. Auburn covers. I just think their defense is too good against Missouri's offense. Missouri's not going to be able to finish drives. If Auburn can just not turn the ball over, they will win this game. Arizona State at Cincinnati. This game started at 2.5 points in Cincinnati's favor. It has now gone up to 4.5. And that comes because Jeff Sims is the starting quarterback for Arizona State. Leavitt is out. If you have not seen Jeff Sims play or know nothing about him, he likes to turn the ball over. He is really good at fumbling, throwing interceptions. It's just one of his favorite things to do. It's why he lost the starting job at Nebraska last year. Arizona State's game plan is going to try and make this the Cam Scadaboo game. They are going to try avoid throwing as much as possible, and they are just going to run it down Cincinnati's throats with Sims and Scadaboo. Now, Cincinnati definitely has the quarterback advantage in this game, so I think Arizona State's part of that, running the game, running the ball all the time is going to be also trying to keep the ball away from Cincinnati. Don't let their quarterback get hot, because Cincinnati is not great defensively, and they don't have a great rush defense. If Jeff Sims can just not turn the ball over and keep the ball away from Cincinnati's offense, I think Arizona State could pull off the upset on the road. And like I said, the line has been moving more in Cincinnati's favor since Jeff Sims was announced quarterback. If he can just hang on to the ball, Arizona State has a chance. And if they win, they will be top 25. South Carolina at Oklahoma. Oklahoma started as a 2.5-point favorite. That has now gone down to 1.5 points, so it's basically a toss-up. Oklahoma State is wasting a very good defense, much like Iowa in years past, this offense is just absolute doo-doo. They're missing like their top 5 receivers, so that doesn't help. The offensive line hasn't been great. You got now a freshman at quarterback because the sophomore wasn't cutting it. It's a disaster at Oklahoma right now. They could not get anything going against Texas, but that's no different from the rest of the year. And this is going to be a very ugly game. Let's just put it that way. If you're looking at a play in this one, the under, probably, because both teams have bad offensive lines. South Carolina's tied for dead last in tackles for loss allowed, and Oklahoma is barely better. South Carolina is dead last alone in sacks allowed, and Oklahoma is 127th. Both teams do have good defensive lines. I would say South Carolina's is significantly better. And because of that, I do lean South Carolina in this game. Again, like I said, 2 terrible, terrible offenses. South Carolina's defensive line is better. It's going to make life hell for Oklahoma. I lean South Carolina in this one. All right, let's get into the afternoon games. But before we do that, let's take a quick break. All right. Afternoon games. We will start with Alabama at Tennessee, 3rd Saturday in October. Tennessee started off as a 2.5-point underdog, and now it's gone up to 3.5 points, which makes me like that number a little bit more for Tennessee. Both teams are coming off ugly, ugly wins. Tennessee's defense has played good, but they were getting picked apart by Graham Mertz before he got hurt. And Tennessee's offensive line, specifically the tackles, have been bad for the last 3 games. Just terrible. And Nico is still a freshman. You can't allow pressure that quick. You can't be having stupid holding penalties. Once they started to roll Nico out, roll him out of the pocket, yes, the tackles still struggled with holding penalties and whatnot, but Nico did start to have some more success. So I don't think the issues on this offense are necessarily Nico. It's Nico not being experienced, so it takes him a second to read the defense. He's not going to know right away, and when you allow pressure on him that quick, he's not going to be able to do anything. I think they're going to have a better game plan going into this one. I think it is fixable what they're doing, or what they're doing wrong is fixable, and I think we will see that come out this week because this isn't your Nick Saban Alabama anymore. Bama's defense has not been good, or I should say hasn't been great, but this is one of the most penalized teams in the country, and I think Tennessee, like I said, they're going to be able to make those changes. They have some game plan that they're going to be able to do against Alabama, and Alabama's going to shoot themselves in the foot by committing stupid penalties. It's going to happen. It's what Bama does, or at least this year. But that Bama offense, they're still going to find a way to score. So if Tennessee does want a chance to win this game, they do need to be successful on the ground, and they do need to keep pressure off of Nico, whether that's rolling him out of the pocket or what. You got to be successful in the run game against Alabama to win this one, and quit with all the stupid penalties. The offensive line, like I said, the tackles, stupid penalties, quit. Just none of that. You can't be doing that either. That's not going to help. Yes, Bama's going to shoot themselves in the foot. You can't do that too. Take note of Vandy's game plan, maybe a little from South Carolina. Bama has its flaws. You just need to exploit them. Notre Dame at Virginia Tech. Georgia Tech, my goodness. Georgia Tech is a 11.5-point underdog at home, but that has now dropped to 9.5, which makes me think that Haynes King is playing. For a while there, it was said that he was probably going to play, but no official word, and that line stayed at 11.5, but it finally dropped, which makes me think Haynes King is playing. And if he is playing, Georgia Tech could win this game. They are a much better team with him. He is the heart and soul of that offense, or team, I guess, in general. And, I mean, Notre Dame, they started the season slow with a terrible loss to Northern Illinois, but they've quietly rolled to a 5-1 record. So they are, hurts me to say this a little bit just because I can't get over that Northern Illinois loss, but they are a pretty good team. Now, and and their schedule moving forward is actually pretty favorable. It hurts me again to say this, they could finish the season 11-1. Now, I still don't believe. I think Georgia Tech could win this game. I think it's going to be a close game because Georgia Tech, you look at any game they've played and it's pretty close every time. There's been like 1-2 score game or 2-2 score games, but they were close. They were close games, and these are two teams that love to run the ball, two very good defenses. Georgia Tech is better against the run, and Notre Dame does have an abysmal passing game. If Haynes King plays, Georgia Tech wins. If Haynes King is out, Notre Dame wins easily. I just don't believe in Pyron or whatever his name is, the backup. He has not thrown the ball. He is a running quarterback. If Haynes King plays, Georgia Tech wins. If he doesn't, and I'm not saying Georgia Tech blows out Notre Dame. They win in a squeaker. But if Haynes King is out, Notre Dame wins by a mile. Michigan at Illinois. Illinois is a 3.5-point dog at home. Illinois is 5-1 on the season, and their one loss was a pretty close game at Penn State during a whiteout. So Illinois is having a pretty good season. Now, last week was ugly. They did almost lose to Purdue, and Purdue is one of the worst teams in the country. Michigan, on the other hand, does have 2 losses. One to Texas, which, that's fine. Texas is the number 1 team in the country. I expect you to lose to them. The other one was to Washington, which, a little concerning. Makes me think that maybe Michigan has some issues, which we know. Because they don't have the greatest pass defense. Yes, they have Will Johnson, but their pass defense has not been great. And Altmaier, as of late, has been good. He's been really good. And Illinois does have 2 legit wide receivers. And we've all seen this Michigan passing attack. It's so terrible. I believe Jack Tuttle is starting this week, so far he has looked like the most competent thrower on this team. We'll see if that continues against Illinois, but Michigan's passing attack has just been so terrible. And I don't think it's all on the quarterbacks. I don't think they have good wide receivers. Their only reliable pass catcher is Loveland. So it's terrible. It's so terrible. And so they love to run the ball, and we've seen it. That's how they won against USC. They just ran the ball. And stopping the run is not really Illinois' strong suit. So if Illinois wants any shot at upsetting Michigan, which I guess technically Michigan might be ranked higher, but I think it's only by like 1. They need to find a way. Maybe Illinois might be higher. I don't remember who's who. One's 22, one's 23, I think is how it goes. But if Illinois wants any shot at winning, they need to find a way to force Michigan into passing situations. They need to be able to stop the run, force them into 3rd and long, force them to throw the ball. I don't think their receivers are good. And if you are forcing Michigan to throw, you're winning this game. Houston at Kansas. Kansas started as a 6.5-point favorite and has now dropped to 5.5. 2 doo-doo teams. That's all there really is to say about this game. 2 doo-doo teams going at it. Houston has been a disaster all season, but they are coming off a big win against TCU. Houston's offense has just been so bad. It has had no life to it all year, and TCU has a terrible defense. So it was encouraging, I'm sure, for Houston and Houston fans to see them score 30 points against a Power 4 team. Granted, it was TCU's defense, and they're terrible. So who knows? Maybe this is a sign moving forward that Houston is finally going to get some confidence on offense and start to move the ball more, because their defense has not been bad. It's just the offense that has struggled to find a rhythm. Whereas Kansas, on the other hand, has just kind of been mediocre at both. Jalen Daniels has not looked like the quarterback we expected this season. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Andy Kotelnicki was the heart and soul of that offense, I guess. As soon as he leaves for Penn State, just rough. I expect him to struggle against this Houston defense because he has not shown that he will not struggle against every defense. So I think this game is going to be a lot closer than Kansas fans would like. I'm not saying Houston wins. I'm just saying this might be closer than Kansas fans would like. Colorado at Arizona. Arizona started off as a 3.5-point favorite. They are now 2.5-point favorites. This is the battle of two teams that were overrated as hell coming into the season. I was never high on either one. Now, granted, I did have Colorado making a bowl game. I did not have Arizona making a bowl game. Neither one has clinched yet, but that's how I had it. Colorado is great at throwing the ball and not much else. They basically refuse to run the ball, and I don't know if that's because they're just trying to pump up Shadur or their offensive line is that terrible at the run game, because they are that bad. That offensive line is terrible. And defensively, they are abysmal against the run. They play okay against the pass, but they do have Travis Hunter. And Arizona, I've said it before, I'll say it again, Fafita is a one-trick pony, and Arizona loves to throw the ball, and Fafita only likes to throw it to McMillan and no one else. Travis Hunter is on Colorado's defense. Let's be honest, he's probably going to be on McMillan every single play, and he is good enough to shut McMillan down. And if McMillan gets shut down, Fafita is all out of sorts, and then that offense is all out of sorts. I've been saying it. I keep saying it, and you'll see it again. McMillan is the only person Fafita likes to throw to, and I have stats to back that up. McMillan has 42 catches for 742 yards this year, and has been targeted 67 times, which is fifth most in college football, fifth most in the country. The next closest in receptions on their team is their running back, which usually if your running back's catching it, it's because it's not a designed pass to them, it's because you have nowhere else to go or you're under pressure and you have to dunk it off to them. Second closest in receptions is the running back with 22 catches. That's 20 less than McMillan. Next closest in yards is the tight end, Burnett, with 205 yards. That's 537 yards less than McMillan. McMillan is responsible for 45% of Fafita's passing yards this year and 30% of his completions. He is so reliant on McMillan, it is unreal. And Travis Hunter, like I said, he is good enough to shut down McMillan. And as much as, it kind of hurts to say this, but it doesn't at the same time, Colorado wins this game because Arizona is overrated. And until Fafita can prove that he can produce without relying on McMillan, I am always going to be against Arizona. Evening games. LSU at Arkansas. Arkansas is a weird team, man. They're a fucking weird team. They are 2.5-point underdogs at home, which is kind of crazy to say because LSU has looked pretty good. But every game must be an absolute roller coaster of emotions as an Arkansas fan. They play in a lot of close games. Before the season, a lot of people, myself included, thought Sam Pittman would be gone, and so far Bobby Petrino might have saved his job. Offensively, Arkansas can be so fun to watch. Taylon Green is electric as hell. The one thing going into this game, how healthy is Taylon Green? Because he got banged up, and it's still unclear just how healthy he really is. So I'm not touching this game. Because of that reason, I don't know how healthy Taylon Green is. Until you see him start to play, maybe live bet it, but I'm not touching this game until I know. Defensively, Arkansas is good at stopping the run, and they're pretty decent at getting after the quarterback. We saw them dominate Tennessee, but Tennessee does have a terrible offensive line. Because LSU, on the other hand, they do have a good offensive line. They are phenomenal at protecting Nussmeier. Now, some credit goes to him as well for avoiding sacks, but, that offensive line is very good. So we'll see just how good this Arkansas defensive line really is. LSU did lose the season opener to USC. Not great, but I'm willing to forgive when it comes to that one. And it was a weird game. Brian Kelly always loses the opener for LSU. It's a weird little curse he has. But the only other team that has been able to do any sort of backfield disruption on LSU was South Carolina, and LSU barely beat them. So if Arkansas wants to win this game, they need to get penetration on that LSU offensive line, and they need to slow down. if they want any chance of slowing down that offense, they need to do what they did against Tennessee and put pressure on Nussmeier. Otherwise, if they don't, I mean, LSU wins this game easily because I just don't know how healthy Talon is. Georgia at Texas. Texas started as a 3.5-point favorite. That has now gone up to 4.5. This is a preview of what I thought and still think the SEC championship game will be. Both teams have a great passing attack, and I'm so excited to see Ewers versus Carson Beck. It's gonna be fun. Now, say what you want about Carson Beck. Take away that first half against Bama, and he has played great this season. For Ewers, take away that first half, I guess, against Oklahoma. He also has looked great this season. Now, he has been injured for a good chunk. I'm aware of that. Georgia does not have a dynamic rushing attack, though, which is super weird to say because that was their identity for so long. And Texas is pretty good on the run. Now, Texas also has a very good offensive line, so that is part of it. Georgia's biggest game this year was against Bama, and that was a pretty good game, pretty big game. Still looks like a good game. Whereas Texas, their biggest game was against Michigan. And the more that we see Michigan play, the better, that win does not look as good as we thought. Texas is still very good, don't get me wrong, but Michigan is not looking as good as we thought. So their biggest win is not looking as big. Now, granted, this is going to be the biggest game for both teams this year. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think this game is bigger than Georgia-Bama. Say what you want. I think this game's going to be a little bigger than Georgia-Bama. Some people might disagree with that. That's fine. I don't really care. I think Kirby Smart, though, is sick of hearing how bad his team has played and how bad that first half was against Bama. I think he's going to have his team fired up and ready for this game. Texas may be ahead at halftime, but Georgia has proven time and time again they are a second-half team, and if Texas allows this game to be close at half, they may be in serious trouble. Now, looking forward to the rest of the season, Texas has an easy schedule. I think they can lose this game, and they'll still win out and make the playoffs. But Georgia does not have an easy rest of their schedule, and they need this win more than Texas does. I'm not saying that Texas is going to try to win this game or whatnot, but I think these dogs are hungry, and Texas is going down. Kansas State at West Virginia. West Virginia is a 3.5-point underdog at home. That has now dropped to 2.5. Looking at Kansas State's season as a whole, they had one bad half against Tulane and a bad 6-ish minutes of game time against BYU. For those who forget, Kansas State was up 6-3, and over the span of about 6 minutes in that game, shit hit the fan, and after those 6 minutes were done, they were down 31-6. Right before half and right after half, just shit the bed. Take away those 6 minutes, Kansas State and that first half against Tulane, Kansas State is a very good team. West Virginia, on the other hand, has been very up and down. Their defense is absolute doo-doo, but the offense has been pretty good. Now, they've been really good at running the ball, whereas they're going up against a Kansas State team that has been great against the run. If you want to beat this Kansas State defense, you need to be able to throw the ball, which West Virginia's through the air. But Kansas State is very vulnerable through the air. So if West Virginia wants a chance to win this game, they need to be able to pass the ball. I do think, though, Kansas State has a great rushing attack. West Virginia has a terrible rush defense. I think Kansas State continues to roll, and West Virginia fans are going to start to become very restless. I think this is going to be an ugly game for them, and they are going to start lashing out at their coach. Iowa at Michigan State. Michigan State was a 6.5-point dog that has now gone down to 5.5. Aiden Childs is a turnover machine. Michigan State has turned it over 14 times in 6 games, and 11 of those belong to Aiden Childs. 8 interceptions, 3 fumbles. Just unbelievable. Iowa also forces the ball over nearly twice a game. Now, granted, turnovers can be attributed to luck, but in this case, you have a quarterback who cannot help but give the ball to the other team, and Iowa does have a good defense. So I think he's going to turn the ball over a few times and give Iowa a short field. I like a few different plays in this game. Just a heads up, I like Iowa to cover. I like the over. all of that. Iowa could cover the over on themselves, just themselves. I think Michigan State does have a decent defense, and they will make some stops, but that offense is going to put them in bad positions, and Iowa is going to roll. I just don't see Michigan State's offense doing enough to win this game. Kentucky at Florida. Florida is a 1.5-point favorite at home. Shocker, Kentucky's offense is not good, and they are led by their defense. We've heard it all before. It's how it goes with Kentucky. Whereas the Gators are the opposite. I think their offense has been significantly better with Graham Mertz. Now, Graham Mertz is gone for the rest of the season. He tore his ACL. College career's over. Wish the best of luck to him in the NFL if he goes that route. I personally think their offense is now going to be worse now that Graham Mertz is gone. Now, DJ Lagway does have probably more potential than Graham Mertz, but right now where they are in their careers, Mertz does have the upper hand just because Lagway is a freshman. This is his first time. Mertz has been around the block a few times. I also think that Kentucky is the better team. Playing at the Swamp is never easy, and this won't be an easy game, but I do think Kentucky overcomes, and I think they might pull off the win. They're a run-first team, and Florida has been bad against the run, and I just think Lagway, like I said, he's still young. He's a new quarterback. Kentucky does have a good defense. They're going to run, and this is a game that Florida should win, but they won't. And I think Billy Napier might finally get fired. I don't know what they're waiting for. I think he could get fired after this game. All right, late night game. TCU at Utah. Utah was a 4.5-point favorite. That's dropped to 3.5. First of all, Utah at night, good luck, TCU. You're not winning. But we have seen this story already for Utah. Cam Rising's out for the season. With him at the offense, other than the last game when he got hurt, they've been very good with him offensively. As soon as he's not playing, offensively they struggle. It's the darndest thing. The defense always keeps them in games because the defense is still very good even when the offense struggles. We saw it all last year. It's been the case this year. They're going to be in a lot of close games because that defense is still very good. Now, TCU's offense is very explosive, but that defense is trash. We already talked about it. Houston had not scored a touchdown for like 2 straight games. They go up against TCU and they drop 30 points and win the game. I think that very well could happen here. I think Utah probably has a better offense than Houston, and I think their defense might be better than Houston's as well. So I think TCU, they may struggle. I think this is a game where Wilson might be able to get comfortable and get into a groove and boost his confidence a little bit. And with this game, I honestly think that this will be a preview of how the rest of the season will go for Utah. If they are able to find success against a terrible defense, I think there's hope for the rest of the season. It will boost the confidence. You need that for a freshman quarterback. I think it will be a good sign for the rest of the season. But if they cannot get anything going against this TCU defense, then they are absolutely screwed the rest of the season. Like I said, they might be in a lot of close games because that defense is that good, but if they cannot get anything going offensively in this game, there's no hope the rest of the season. I do think Utah does prevail at home against TCU. I think that TCU offense is great, but they have struggled when they have to go against a good defense. I think Utah wins this one. I think they might win pretty easily. All right. Time to get into my 5 faves. I say this every week. I struggled to get it down to just 5. Positive attitude, winning mindset. We're going to have a great weekend. I got Georgia Tech plus 9.5 at minus 105. This one, if you want to live bet this one, I understand because, again, how healthy is Haynes King? Is he even playing? I'm pretty confident he's playing based on the line movement in this one. I think Georgia Tech could win this one, so I have them covering 9.5. I got Colorado plus 2.5 at minus 105. I mean, I already pleaded my case on this one earlier. There's just no way Arizona's able to do anything against Colorado. Fafita is just a one-trick pony, and Hunter, assuming he's healthy enough, because he is going to play. I did see that. He's going to shut down McMillan. I got Iowa minus 5.5 at minus 115. Aiden Childs, like I said, they're going to put put his defense in bad spots with short yardage for Iowa, and they're going to have some short drives. Iowa wins this game easily. Aiden Childs is going to struggle too much. Kansas State -2.5 at -118. West Virginia's strength on offense is also what Kansas State's strength is on defense at stopping. And flip that around, West Virginia's weakness on defense is exactly what Kansas State is great at exploiting. So I think this is an ugly game for West Virginia. Kansas State covers 2.5. And Clemson -20.5 at -115. That Tyler from Spartanburg wagon, it cannot be stopped, and Virginia is not going to stop it. I think Clemson rolls to at least a 4-touchdown win. And they only need to win by 3 to cover. 3 touchdowns. And then my honorable mentions. I have SMU -15.5 at -115. They're going up against Stanford. SMU is a quiet little wagon. As soon as they made that full-time switch to Kevin Jennings, the offense has been great and the defense has played good enough. I think SMU keeps on rolling through the ACC, which is so weird to say because neither of these teams were in the ACC last year. I got Colorado, Arizona over 58.5, -104. McMillan is a good wide receiver, so I'm not saying he's not going to have some success, and I don't know that Hunter is necessarily going to follow him every single play, but I can't imagine he's not going to be on him a lot of the time. They will find some success against this Colorado defense. They will score a little bit, and Colorado's going to score a lot. So I could see that game hitting the over. And then Auburn and at Mizzou under 50.5 at -115. Auburn's offense has kind of struggled this year, and Mizzou's offense has struggled to be consistent and finish drives. And Auburn does have a good defense. I think this could be a lower scoring game that I do think Auburn wins. I have the under in that one. And then my Power 4 moneyline parlay, I've got Auburn, Colorado, SMU, and then I got USC at Maryland. Maryland's done. USC is going to wax the floor with them. It's not going to be pretty. That's a +720. And then my buddy, who is kicking my ass, his picks this week. Illinois +158, which I like a lot. Duke -154, I also like a lot. Tennessee +125, I also like a lot. And TCU +136, I do not like. I think Utah wins that one. His parlay. Arizona, which I already pleaded my case on why I don't think they win, but Arizona, Iowa State, they're going to win. LSU, they're going to win. Texas, I don't know if they're going to win, but parlay those and you got +421. All right, well, thank you all for joining me. It's going to be a good weekend of college football. I think there's going to be a lot of good games, and I think some of the games that you don't expect to be good could be good. I'm really excited for this weekend, and I will talk to you guys later this week to recap Week 8.